This week in games, Square Enix is in free fall, Elden Ring DLC has been announced, and we discuss what makes a JRPG. Also, I have been playing with the Dualsense Edge. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 137. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, recording from home alongside my good friend and co-host, Connor Elliott. Say hello to the people.
Hello, that's me.
Hello, it is you indeed, my friend. How you doing, man? How's your week been?
Well, besides having power out for 2 days, good. Well, busy. My job requires spring to have a lot of heavy work. A lot of work, I should say. So I've been doing that to keep myself tired. You know.
Okay. Yeah, I feel that. I've had an okay week. I also, like you, there were some heavy storms in Texas as a whole, but I was in Fort Worth alongside you when it started happening. And I was actually at work when the storms were going off. And I was like, man, am I going to have to spend the rest of my night here at BJ's Brewhouse and Eatery, or am I going to be able to go home? Luckily, the storm waned off, and then I was able to go home. You were affected, obviously, because your power went out for a couple of days.
Yeah, I couldn't even play Halo.
No Halo, yeah. So at the end of this podcast, we had planned for a Two Penny Game Club, an early episode to put us back on track on the monthly schedule of Halo Combat Evolved, and Connor's power went out, so he was unable to play Halo in time for that. So we'll be back probably next week, but we'll keep you posted. And then I'm thinking, Connor, we might just scrap the monthly scheduling of that and just kind of play it by ear for each game.
Okay.
I think that makes more sense than what we're rolling with right now, but who knows? Anyways, but not to worry, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a little something here for the end of the episode here where I have been playing. I purchased, if you paid attention to the piggy bank, the most recent piggy bank, I believe that went up on the channel, youtube.com/@2pennygames. I got myself a Dualsense Edge, and I'll be talking about that here at the end of the episode. But what are we going to be doing until then? Ladies and gentlemen, because this is the Two Penny Gamescast, where each week, me and Connor, we sit down and we give you the new news concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, two pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. You can catch this show every Monday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, or mainstream podcast services of your choice. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow for all of that good stuff. Make sure to follow us over on TikTok at 2pennygames and on Twitter at @2pennygames for all fun updates and gaming goodness from there. But Connor, let's get right into it. Let's go into our first topic of the day. Let's drop some cents on them. Your first penny: the Square Enix CEO, who constantly pushed NFT games to be replaced. This is a Kotaku article from Ethan Gach. Square Enix is getting a new boss. Yasuke Matsuda has served as the Final Fantasy publisher's CEO for 10 years and spent the last couple of those hyping up NFTs and other blockchain scams. He's now set to be replaced by a relative newcomer pending shareholder approval in June. The company announced the organizational shakeup on Friday, claiming it was needed in order to chase more technological innovation. Takashi Kyoto, the new CEO, has only been at Square for a couple of years, and prior to that was general manager at the Dentsu Innovation Initiative, a business group exploring exciting opportunities in, among other things, the metaverse. Here's the reason Square Enix gave for switching bosses. Quote, under the rapid change of business environment surrounding the entertainment industry, the proposed change is intended to reshape the management team with the goal of adopting ever-evolving technological innovations and maximizing on the creativity of the company's group in order to deliver even greater entertainment to its customers around the world. Square Enix hasn't been in a great place recently. Its stock price has trended down over the past 5 years, and it struggled to find hits outside of mobile gacha games and its core franchise, Final Fantasy. Despite doubling down on the success of Final Fantasy VII Remake, the publisher recently cut loose North American studios Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal at a huge discount. And when it's not being disappointed by the sales of third-party projects like Guardians of the Galaxy, it's churning out games that don't seem to get enough time, attention, or resources to fully succeed. Connor, this is your first penny. Square Enix CEO to be replaced by a metaverse enthusiast. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, wait, is he? I think he's being. He was originally in charge of that.
Yeah.
Involved that. Yeah. So I don't know who the new guy is. I don't know anything about him. All I do know about this president was that the CEO, is that he was pushing NFTs. The article points it out, and obviously that's they called it a scam. I don't know if it's necessarily a scam. It's easy to use as a scam, but intrinsically it's not. But aside from that, NFTs are
there's no real money in it is the problem.
There's no money in it. There's no people don't like it, and so he was really like. Even when we were seeing all of the news come out of how NFTs were failing, because they've clearly gone downhill in these last couple months, but even then he was still sticking with it. He was like, "No, we're going to do NFTs and stuff." So while I don't know really anything else about this CEO, the fact that that was pretty much all we were seeing from him, I can count this as I can confidently count this as a good thing. No, I don't. Square Enix, as they are right now, they aren't. They make good games. They make bad games. They're like any other company.
Square Enix be making some games, man. Let me tell you what. They put out multiple games every year.
They do. Yeah, and with how well they performed, how well that relates to the CEO, I don't know as well. Like I said, solely know about him because the NFT stuff, and now that he's on the out, I only see this as a good thing. Since we're not be focusing on stupid things, post NFTs.
Oh, I lost you a little bit. Bit right there at the end.
You froze, and I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, but essentially, I'm more or less right there alongside with you. I think Square Enix, on a macro scale, has been trending downward for the last couple of years, which is unfortunate because they were at a peak fairly recently. I want to say early to mid 2010s. They were doing pretty solid, but I think since then, not so much. You look at things like Tomb Raider being given to, I believe Eidos Montreal did that one, and wasn't received as well as the ones that came from Crystal Dynamics. Crystal Dynamics then being pushed into a games of service market, chasing trends like the NFTs. Obviously didn't work for Marvel's Avengers, and then selling off your entire western side of your company in terms of studios at a really cheap price was really disappointing for me to see, because I was a fan of a lot of those studios. And obviously we've seen since then, Tomb Raider alone sold for more than what that entire side went for. So it's I think this is a clear sign that Square Enix is priming itself to be sold. And this is just another step of that, where we're getting ahead of any issues we might have had with, current leadership, and we're going to go ahead and switch that out, and we're going to put a name there that, might get switched out again in 6 months when you assume PlayStation buys Square Enix, but who knows? It all just kind of depends on the Activision Blizzard deal that's happening. But in terms of Square Enix catalog, I mean, we'll have to see. But I don't know if this is so much of a good or negative thing. It's just more of a different thing. Metaverse is the next thing up for, the general trend and things. So for Takashi Kiryu? What was that?
I did not. I would not.
Okay.
Kiryu, I believe.
Kiryu. Coming from, obviously been at Square Enix for a few years at least, but coming from metaverse focused things, it's like, okay, well, all right, I guess this is where we can expect Square Enix to go in the not too distant future, which is, just as concerning, but, maybe less so, because there's probably actually going to be a profit in that, as opposed to the NFT market. So
the future of Square Enix is uncertain.
It is uncertain. I think what is certain is that we're going to continue to get probably rockin' Final Fantasy games, because obviously 7 Remake was great. It looks like Final Fantasy 16 is going to be another hit. And, there's a couple of other smaller Square Enix titles that are hitting and so forth. Kingdom Hearts 4 is on the way. 7 Rebirth is on the way. A bunch of other smaller projects, Final Fantasy related, most of them are on the way. So we will see what happens from there. But, ladies and gentlemen, if you thought that was all that Square Enix was doing in the news this week, you would be wrong. Moving on to our second topic of the day. And my first penny, even though, Connor, I'll be honest, all these kind of relate to you. It's a very you-heavy week this week. Mm-hmm. You got some inputs, I assume, on quite a few of these things. But we'll get there. But moving on to our second topic of the day, Square Enix snuffs out Luminous, the studio behind Forspoken. This is a PC gaming... Let me slow down. Man, we're having some internet issues right now, but we're gonna struggle through it. This is a PC Gamer article from Joshua Wolins. Luminous Productions, the team behind this year's powerfully milling Forspoken, is going quietly into that good night. In a tweet posted yesterday, the studio announced that beginning on May 1st, it would, quote, join Square Enix to deliver new, innovative gaming experiences across the globe. In other words, it's being folded into its parent company and ceasing to exist as a separate entity. In the 2 months between now and May 1st, Luminous says it'll be, quote, entirely focused on Forspoken, and that it's, quote, currently working on the previously announced patch to address overall game performance. Given that some of Forspoken's previous patches didn't really do much to optimize the game for some players, we'd better hope this last one is a doozy. The studio also said that Forspoken's upcoming DLC, In Tanta We Trust, remains on track for release this summer. Wow.
Yeah, it's sometimes game companies just can't make it.
Yeah,
it's a very competitive marketplace, and as we all kind of know, Forspoken just didn't hit on like any level with anybody.
Yeah,
or anybody notable. Boring narrative, boring combat, but nothing bad. But clearly not.
Yeah, just nothing to grab your attention in a market that's highly competitive, which is unfortunate for this dev team that worked so long on this. Connor, I was in hype for the rumored PlayStation showcase that's coming up. I've gone back and I've looked at other PlayStation showcases. Specifically, the last one we got a year and a half ago, where they announced Spider-Man and Wolverine, and they showed off some Forspoken stuff. But I also went back to the PlayStation 5 reveal event, where Forspoken was announced under a different name. And so that, we're coming up on 4 years almost since then, right? 3 or 4 years since then. And so sure. I think it's clear that Forspoken had been in development for a really, really long time. It didn't quite hit the mark. I don't know if it ever had the chance of hitting the mark. And because of that, Square Enix is making the choice to consolidate that into their main arc. Again, I think this is so that they can be sold. I think they're prepping for that. I think they're ready to gear up for that. And I think within the next couple of months, maybe even weeks, we're going to see headlines of somebody, purchasing them for $13 billion or something crazy like that.
You see, if they to that end, if we've theorized that if someone is going to buy it, it's going to be Sony, considering their long history with Square Enix, the fact that their competitor Microsoft is buying up a bunch of studios, it would make sense for them to be the ones if it is going to be sold. Mm-hmm. But with one of the things that's been looming in the background is the lawsuit against Xbox for buying Activision Blizzard, and that might get canceled out, and Sony is leading the charge on that front. I don't know how it'll look if they buy another big studio when they're trying to claim, hey, Bethesda and Ubisoft, Microsoft, they're purchasing Activision Blizzard, they're gonna control the gaming sphere. Oh no, which we've talked about on the show before. That's questionable. But if they were to purchase Square Enix, don't you think they might, cast their own doubts on the claim they're making about Microsoft, given recent news?
I mean, yes, but they didn't have much of an argument before, and I think it's really to focus on that. It's really just that Sony wants access to Call of Duty, and you'll notice all of their arguments have been about how Call of Duty is the dominating first-person shooter IP and this, that, and the third space. And then Microsoft last week we covered about how, Sony already has the lion's share of the marketplace by far. So what are we really doing here? And I think at the end of the day, it was always going to come down to that argument. So when Sony does come out and, buys another studio or whatever, and we also covered last week that it looks like they're buying studios in the background anyway. So nothing has really changed. And it's just the drawn out process of getting lawyers and the federal government's involved. That's really making a big difference here. But will it fly in the face? Yes, but they didn't have much of an argument to begin with, and they were probably going to lose this case anyway.
Yeah, most likely. Only one other thing I just wanted to bring up was I didn't know that Luminous' engine was what Final Fantasy 15 ran on. I forgot they had helped work on that, but I didn't. I mean, it makes sense when
Didn't
I see
7 Remake also run on that one, or am I wrong?
I don't know. I'd be surprised if it did, because Final Fantasy 15 combat is very different from 7 Remake combat. But I see similarities between 15 and Forspoken. Now that's put into perspective. Oh well. Little interesting thing I just found out.
Yeah. Moving on to our next topic of the day. My second penny. Atomic Heart banned in the Ukraine. We're pulling a PlayStation Lifestyle article by Zamirak Khan. The Ukrainian government has made good on its promise to formally request an Atomic Heart ban from major platform holders, including Sony. Vice Prime Minister Mikhailo Fedorov has now published the official letter addressed to PlayStation boss Jim Ryan. Quote, I believe Sony Interactive Entertainment doesn't want to be considered as a platform that supports communism, even in such futuristic execution. History of Soviet Russia and its imperialistic infringements towards other independent countries led to murder of hundreds of thousands of civil people, not only now in Ukraine, but also in Moldova and Georgia. Quite a rhetorical question whether it is worth to promote symbols that covered with blood. Quite a rhetorical question whether it is worth to promote symbols that covered with blood. I believe that's supposed to that's supposed to read. Fedorov also sent similar letters to Sony president and CEO Kenichiro Yoshida, Valve's Gabe Newell, and Microsoft's Brad Smith. Neither of the aforementioned companies have responded to the call for an Atomic Heart ban yet. And I don't think it's going to happen.
No, it is not. Listen, I get why they're angry. I mean, if my country was invaded by, Russian forces, I wouldn't be too kind or happy towards any kind of Russian products.
And the game is like pretty pro Russia, and it's
it is.
The dev studio is in Russia, and it seems to be supporting Russia's efforts, which are atrocious. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, I get it, but ultimately, it's even if they do support it, which I haven't seen personally anything on that. I've heard people say they're in support of them, but like I said, I haven't seen actual evidence myself. It makes sense that you're angry and are trying to do your best to, try and fight back against Russia in any way, shape, and form. But ultimately, the existence of Atomic Heart doesn't change anything. It doesn't influence anything. It's just, you getting angry at something that Russia is doing. Once again, understandable. I'm not in the position to criticize you on that front, but what's the end goal here? Okay, it gets banned. All right, done. That's it. And clearly no one cares, because the concerns of other countries don't really include video games. That's one of those areas where I think they really, really do not care. I mean, even in our own politics, we haven't talked about video games in any serious level since like the San Andreas days, when they were trying to say this causes violence and does horrible things.
I would push back and say Battlefront 2 microtransaction stuff.
Oh yeah, that did happen.
Yeah,
but that was even more related to gambling as opposed to like the war against video games itself. Because once gambling was included in that conversation,
we struggling with our connections today. Sorry, what was that last bit?
Yeah, we have problems with gambling. Our country, our government doesn't really like gambling all that much. It seems like they want kids being corrupted by that influence, which to that end makes sense. But going back to Atomic Heart, like I said, it's just them lashing out at something, and this is what they're choosing to do now. And to the claims of like racism, what it's specifically talking about, veiled racism. There was a cartoon that was, I think from Soviet Russia back in the day, that was put on one of the televisions in the game that depicts a characterized Native American, which they did remove. Yeah, it's bad. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But they did remove it. It's not like they're trying to be racist. It's from a time when Russia would just kind of be like the United States. They'd have cartoons, and they weren't very sensitive to other people that were of different race. So, they're just picking a fight that's not worth it.
I'm half in, half out with you. I think it's worth it. Like, in terms of like it continues their Ukraine's agenda here, which is to get Russia the fuck out of their business. It's just that I think they should be doing this, but it's not like it's going to be a focus. Ukraine has sent this letter out. That's all they're really going to do. They're not going to, we're not going to see trade disputes over this. We're not going to, feel any backlash if certain companies decide not to, or to go ahead and ban Atomic Heart. The thing is that they won't. One, because Atomic Heart isn't directly funding Russia. Sure, there's some suspicious ties going on and so forth, and people who are obviously in support of Russia's invasion on that dev team. But it's just not going to. It's just kind of insensitive. The game is insensitive to the times, and the game can't really be at fault for that, because I'm sure it went into development long before this Russia-Ukraine situation happened. But it's unfortunate that it's just falling into these times. And to be honest, nobody cares about Atomic Heart enough to go one way or another about this. The game seems very middling in reviews. I doubt it was ever going to really sell gangbusters like that. And it just seems like, they'll be fine with getting whatever they can from it. So it's not enough. In terms of these big game publishers and companies and so forth, I could see both ways, where they're like, Atomic Heart doesn't really do anything for us. Yeah, sure, fuck it, ban it. It'll be a good PR stint. Or it's not really worth going in on one side or the other. We don't want to inflict backlash from Russia, which is a market, obviously not as important as other markets, but is one of them. So let's just kind of be quiet. I could see, the silent neutrality on this is probably the stance most of these companies would take.
And, another point that they made out, because in their letter, it doesn't seem like they're saying, hey, they're supporting the war, and so that's why they're directly supporting it, so you need to ban the game. They also include the fact that there is a history of Russia's imperialistic infringements towards other countries, and that is true. It's kind of easy to overlook, but at the time, the two big boys on the block for the longest time were the United States and Soviet Russia, and both of them threw their weight around to screw over people smaller and weaker than themselves. And it doesn't really. It's like the game is pretty pro-Russia. It's not super critical of the Russian government or the Soviet era, when they probably could have been, or they should have been, considering all that they've done objectively. So to that end, it makes sense. But once again, it doesn't really lead to the cancellation of this game, the banning of this game, because once again, politicians don't really care. The governments don't really care about this game.
Yeah, and the CEOs of these companies, Atomic Heart is such a flash in the pan game that they're just not even gonna bother. They're just gonna be like, why? We'll just wait 3 months and it'll be over. No one's going to be caring. No one's going to be talking about Atomic Heart by the end of the year. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. Moving on to our final topic of the day, Connor, your final penny. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC expansion got announced. At least, we all assumed an Elden Ring DLC was coming. The subtitle, Shadow of the Erdtree?
Erdtree.
Erdtree. Thank you. There we go.
Mhm. You the game. You know what it is.
Yeah, and that's about all we've got. Is just the
Yeah.
name. Some later reports coming out saying that it's more than likely that Armored Core 6 will be out before this expansion is, and then From Software saying that they have started development on this DLC. So who knows what that means? That could mean they are, quite a bit into the process, or it could mean that they've literally just started. So who knows? What does any of this do anything for you? Do you put your little speculation cap on? Are you thinking, oh, it could be about this, that, and the third? I've heard a lot of From Soft boys going crazy in the lore. They talking big lore theories out here. So where are you at with this?
Well, you see, one of the big characters in Elden Ring, there's a couple of different demigods that the game focuses on. One of them is Mikola. Now, interestingly enough, there's tons of cut content related to this character. People were really diving into the files and finding weapons, dialogue lines, quest lines that weren't in the game. And so it's like, for example, like one's the Twin Blade. One of them is possibly an alternate ending that could add to the game, which in the past they have added new endings to games, such as Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, which was kind of like the remaster of Dark Souls 2, which added a completely different ending, at least an option for a completely different ending, because people weren't really hot on that one because it was literally the same exact thing as the first game. So people were kind of like, what's cool? You should have done more with it. It's interesting. So that was a character. Like, here's my thing with Elden Ring, right? One of the reasons why I want supplemental pieces of media is because Elden Ring has a story to be told. It can go a lot more in depth if it decided to. Obviously, Tavin, you've been critical of the way FromSoft games tell their stories, and this is like those. A little bit more dialogue heavy and a lot more character heavy than past ones have been, since they talk about these figures in the game a lot more. But with this DLC, they have a chance to really kind of bring that kind of story into the fold even more, and just give us little nice details of what they can do. It's as you said before, it is just a photo at the end of the day and a name attached to it, and weird images such as reeds, which could include going to Elden Ring's version of Japan, which is referenced a couple times in the game. Maybe Sekiro. Okay, so you wouldn't know this. This is actually kind of an interesting theory that I have. There's a place called the Land of Reeds, right? And a lot of like these blood arts come from this land, and it references it. There's samurai armor there, and I was starting to. This is probably not likely at all, but I kept thinking to myself, I was like, okay, is there a possibility that they just literally is the Sekiro world, just a little like slightly adjacent towards all the stuff that's happening?
Are these motherfuckers about to connect all their games on like a Valve level thing? Because I know everyone has always been trying to connect them or whatever, or certain fans have been trying to connect them. And obviously Elden Ring and Dark Souls share a lot, but if they pull up, but Blood Arts, there was Blood Arts in Sekiro.
There was.
Is that what they were called? I don't remember exactly.
They were called like more
same idea.
There's blood stuff going on.
Yeah, there's blood stuff going on. So it's just like, are they about to fucking just rein it all in and put it all under the same umbrella?
That would be pretty cool. They could.
God damn it, man. If there's
They
fucking
might not.
Sekiro shit in this shit, I'm gonna have to go fucking play this piece of shit game. Power Wash Simulator is better.
Okay, you shut up. Yeah, you that's not true at all. You're just, see, to you viewers, this guy has been playing Power Wash Simulator for 12 hours this week. 12 hours?
This week? Yeah.
Not even doing the Final Fantasy VII stuff. Not doing that. Just playing Power Wash
just
Simulator.
playing it.
He got on that for the Final Fantasy stuff, but didn't actually play the Final Fantasy stuff.
No. I need the more powerful washers, Connor. I need the level 3 and the level 4 washers. I don't even know if you need that for the Final Fantasy VII stuff, but I want it.
You have to give me the story details of the in-depth plot and world building of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it really adds a lot to the story of Final Fantasy VII is the expansion.
Play it and you'll find out.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the problem with Final Fantasy VII is everything is canon. You can't ignore any of it.
Books, audio stuff, whatever they decide to do.
Yeah.
And have done.
Movies, games, mobile games, little phone games from 2006.
Mm-hmm. Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, maybe, Connor, this is important too. You never know. You never know.
You know, Tavin, I may have brought this up before to you on Twitter, sent it to you. Did you know that there was a mod in Elden Ring that added the Sekiro parry system to it? And it looked cool. Like really, really, really cool. Like I wouldn't mind that being an alternate version of the game. There,
What the fuck?
yeah, he was like, ching, ching, and it was so cool. It was so cool. And he had the jump. They had the jump. Well, no, they didn't have the jump. I think they just had the Elden Ring jump, which is good enough. But did they have the Elden Ring jump? Yeah, they did. It was cool. So they're not going to do anything with this at all, considering it was a mod.
I'm just saying, Connor, what's the fastest class in Elden Ring? Because I've just discovered in the last year or two that like I just really like high dexterity, high speed. Like I don't need heavy damage. I do like magic and stuff, but I don't need it. But like I just need to feel control.
Here's what I would recommend to you now that I played the game. High dex, high magic. Because usually the way that I play the game is strength, faith. Because Elden Ring allows you to have your melee-based stuff, whatever that might be, strength or dex generally. But it also allows you to have, kind of like a subcategory of attacking through magic or through faith builds. So for your case, you can easily just go with like a katana. You can go generally katanas, mainly because they have cool weapon arts such as parries. They have special weapon arts that move faster and do quick attacks. Like for example, one's called Rivers of Blood that makes you do like these super quick, bloody slashes that facilitates fast-paced combat. And magic comes out a lot quicker than like faith, so you're able to also have a staff equipped in your offhand and switch to that, back up, do some ranged attacks, and then go in with your fast one-handed katanas or double-handed katanas, or really any single. Well, I would say to do any single one-handed swords or anything like that. But the problem with at least my experience with Elden Ring is they kind of sucked unless you were using a katana. So if you have for ideas for future builds, go with katana and magic. You might like it.
Right. Because you will have to repeat this conversation later because I'm not playing Elden Ring right now. I've got too much stuff on my plate. Fucking Resident Evil 4 is just around the corner. We are.
That looks great.
Oh god, I'm so excited.
Have you been seeing all the gameplay coming up?
All of it. All of it, man. It looks so good. It just continues to look so good. And I love that like everyone's biggest critique about it is like, hey, the rain looks a little thick. Maybe we should turn the rain down. Like I'm like, that's the best we got as an in it, like, is just the rain? Okay.
19 days, Tavin. 19 days.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Real quickly, I wanna, since we're on Elden Ring, would you consider Elden Ring a JRPG?
I was seeing a conversation going around the internet that JRPG is reductive. So
yes.
So I don't... Would I consider it a JRPG? No. I would consider it a Japanese RPG. But JRPG from the American perspective, to me, has always meant turn-based, animated. Like with like an animated style of some kind. Like I would say I've been playing a lot of Octopath Traveler 2 recently. That's more JRPG than Elden Ring, for example.
Yeah.
Your Octopaths, your Personas, your old Final Fantasies. But yeah, I guess there's a conversation going around in the industry right now that we need to retire the term JRPG.
Yeah, so the origins of it, I'll draw from this Kotaku article just to extrapolate better. There was recently an interview with Final Fantasy 16 producer, what's his name again? Naoki Yoshida. Specifically, I'll read the title of the article. I sent it in the chat if you wanted to look it up. Final Fantasy 16 producer doesn't seem to love the term JRPG. Producer Naoki Yoshida said he considered the genre term discriminatory when it first gained traction. Final Fantasy 16 producer Naoki Yoshida, aka Yoshi P, revealed in a recent interview that he and other developers in Japan didn't like the popular term JRPG when it first popped up years ago, thinking it was discriminatory or being used to make fun of, quote, unquote, Japanese developers working on games like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. So I watched X-Play back in the day. I think I've mentioned it before. It was on G4. It was like the premier gaming television show, really the only one that I was familiar with. Being on the air, and they it makes sense when you go back and I completely wiped it from my brain, but when you go back and see how they covered JRPGs, man, they just like it was just instantaneously like skepticism and would shit on it just instantly. And they tie that in to it being a JRPG. Like, oh, it's a JRPG. So it has this bad thing and this bad thing. And you basically just use it as a way to bring up criticisms of games, but use that to brand it and just JRPGs are bad. And they did that a lot. So, I was it makes sense that they had that much of an issue with the term. Because apparently it wasn't even just XPlay. That was my premier way of getting video game news. That was seemingly an industry standard at the time to just kind of wave aside JRPGs just because they had the moniker JRPG because they were RPGs made in Japan. And that's not even including the fact that JRPGs are kind of a broad way to define RPG games made in Japan. It limited things. So let me see if they include the bit. Let me see if they. For us, quote, for us as developers in Japan, the first time we heard it, it was like a discriminatory term, explained Yoshida, as though we were being made fun of for creating these games. And for some developers, the term JRPG can be something that will maybe trigger bad feelings because of what it was in the past. It wasn't a compliment to a lot of developers in Japan. We understand that recently JRPG has better connotations and it's being used as a positive, but we still remember the time it was used as a negative. And it's good we came away from that.
Yeah, and when you just break it down and think about it, it's weird. Like, because, especially in the times we live in, where Japanese RPGs aren't necessarily your idealized JRPG, kind of sort of what I described as like your turn-based, maybe a little more animated, maybe a little more just Japanese culturally. Like, Elden Ring is a great example. That's a Japanese game. It's a role-playing game, but it wouldn't fit under the umbrella of JRPG, like maybe a Persona would. Final Fantasy. It's been a long time since Final Fantasy has been a traditional quote-unquote JRPG. So really, what are we talking about when the JRPG franchise is not fitting under that umbrella anymore? It might be time to retire that moniker. Because genres as a whole have diversified, specifically in the RPG landscape, where every single game has RPG elements these days. All of them do. Like, it's just sort of like a thing that happens to the point to where like even The Last of Us Part 2 has some like RPG mechanics if you really want to like break it down and get granular with it. So like what is an RPG anymore has kind of been diversified and it's a little harder to put your thumb on the pulse of it. But I've never understood why we have that classification tied to a nationality, tied to an ethnicity, tied to a culture when we could just find better words for it. We all know what a tactics RPG is. Where, you look at your triangle strategies, you look at your Final Fantasy tactics, you look at your Fire Emblems, and, that makes sense. So maybe we just need to embrace turn-based RPG. Maybe we need to find a new term for that type of RPG. And it's an interesting conversation that I appreciated happening in the culture, in the industry this last week, where I was like, oh, that's actually interesting. I wonder if... he mentions in this article here, he goes, listen, I know that like now it's not so much like a bad thing, but like a lot of us remember when it was like, and it was kind of insulting.
And it makes sense. I wouldn't like to just be, put into this box that's extremely broad and just used as a vehicle for criticism. I never myself really thought about JRPGs aside from like, oh, they're games made out of Japan that have certain elements, like you said, turn-based, maybe a bit more, they have the cinematic elements to it, maybe a more anime style. But overall, it was really just kind of this is a JRPG and that's a JRPG, and they could be two completely different games that you could be calling a JRPG. So, I don't know what would be, I guess we can all just call it RPGs in general now, or maybe come up with a term to compartmentalize certain JRPG games that have,
yeah, well, it all fits under the umbrella of RPG, but that umbrella is so large now that we just need subgenres for this. Yeah. I mean, you see it all the time in like action games or, action adventure games or, real-time strategy versus like just strategy games. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's just a I suppose, a bookmark. It's a benchmark in video game evolution to where it's just like, oh, this is what is sort of demanded because the culture is moving forward from here.
Mm.
And the medium is diversifying.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're in the position to be able to say that this is the new term that it'll be called, but we can try and find something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm glad you pulled that. I'm glad you pulled that up. I was not expecting that, and that was a good conversation.
Nice.
There we go. Connor, that is it for the news this week. So let's go ahead and have ourselves a little talk about. First off, I thought It doesn't look like I did, so I'm not gonna do it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you pay attention to the piggy bank, this last Saturday, piggy bank goes live every Saturday at 8 a.m. except for this week where it was late, but don't worry about that. I purchased, while recording, a Dualsense Edge. It has since arrived, and I've been playing it with it. I've had limited playtime experience with it, but what I have had has been positive. I'm gonna go pretty nitty gritty in here with this, Connor. So, oh, great, you have a DualSense right there, a classic DualSense right there. So, when you first get your DualSense Edge, it comes in a very, bougie box. It comes in a box within a box, and even within that box is a carrying case. And I'll say this carrying case is pretty high quality. I'm a big fan of this case, which is weird because I'm not a big fan of a lot of cases. I just kind of find them irrelevant. But yeah, in this case, you have, a nice little net thing to carry your charge cables. I believe the charge cable for this controller came with that. It comes with your controller, and it comes with all the little attachments and doodads that come with the controller itself. For example, there are 2 extra pairs. I don't know how well this camera's going to pick it up. Yeah, I can kind of get it. There's 2 extra sets of analog sticks that it comes with. These ones, the concave ones, are the ones it comes with. It's what's on your classic DualSense controller. I've swapped it out for a more rounded stick that has a shorter stem to it. The carrying case has 2 sets of rounded sticks, one with a short stem and one with a little bit of a longer stem for you to use and so forth. So I've been playing with the short sticks, and I kind of like this better. Overall, I think this controller is superior to the original DualSense, and I think it's currently probably the best controller I've ever played with. The build quality is really, really, really good. It feels really tactile in your hands. It feels, it feels, no pun intended, elite. You know what I'm saying? So the texture of the controller is a little different. It's got a little more friction going on, a little more, just a more textured sort of plastics going around on the edge and stuff. And I like. What's up?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say it fights against that sweaty palm that you.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like the nice embossed black that happens on the bottom half of the controller here, and the sacred symbols are printed on the. You can kind of see it, but not really. Are printed on the touchpad. It comes with back buttons, which you have your choice of using these little nubs. Let me get a good little thing, like a little nub right here. Or you can use a traditional paddle that comes with it as well. It's your choice. I went with the nubs because I experimented with both, and I found that the paddles, I felt like I would press those buttons by accident. So I went with the nubs because I felt like it was less likely that would happen. And they feel good. They come right in and out, no problem. The sticks you can just pull right off, put right on, not a problem. And then the triggers are also textured with the sacred symbols. And it adds just sort of a nice catch to your finger that at first I wasn't sure about. But the more I played with it, the more I was like, oh, I actually do like this. I like that it's here. And then on the back, there's little switches next to each trigger. So you can have it at its default pull length, and as you adjust the switch, it changes the pull length of the thing. So that's it on its default. You can have sort of a middle ground where it comes in a little less, and then you have a final one where it basically is just pressed in like a bumper button, like your R1, L1 buttons, which is kind of cool and neat. I've been experimenting with those. I find it works different depending on the game that you're playing and so forth. For example, I've been playing a lot of Power Wash Simulator, like we were just talking about. So my left trigger, which in Power Wash Simulator, I have to show me what dirt is left on the thing. It like glows orange for you. I press that a lot. So I had that one sort of like at a low press, so I could just really quickly press it and just get the information that I need. Whereas the right trigger I use for spraying, and I kind of just wanted the full pull of that because it felt right to me. And then on the front end here, you'll notice, let me see if I can get it. There's like these like little tab buttons right here. These are sort of like hotkey buttons. They don't really have any function outside of changing the functions of the controller itself, where you hold this one down and a little pop-up, you hold one of them down and a pop-up window comes up and says, hey, what would you like to do? Do you want to change your controller profile settings? Do you want to change volume settings? And there's just different hotkeys based off of that. So you can create custom profiles for your controller. As far as I can tell, you can make as many as you want, and then you set them to hotkeys. So you'll hold down, like, they're called the function buttons, these little tabs. So you'll hold down the left one, and then a window will pop up and say, hey, press triangle, square, X, or circle for whatever controller profile that you have put on those 4 buttons. So I have a first-person shooter profile, and I have a Power Wash Simulator profile right now. And then there's the default, like, revert everything back to normal. And this is just sort of how you can remap your controls any way you want. You can change, your circle button can be your X button, your D-pad can be put on the back things, which is what I've been doing so that I can keep my thumbs on the sticks as much as possible. Triggers and so forth can be switched around. You can kind of just move whatever button you want to whatever purpose you need in the thing. It does require a little bit of a back and forth between loading into your game and then coming back out to edit your functions and then going back into the game, testing it out, being like, yeah, okay, this works. But they have made it really easy to bounce back and forth between the two, which is a positive because the PlayStation 5 UI is a little complicated. So I appreciate that they've made that pretty simple. I think my only critique about this controller is that the face buttons themselves are flat as opposed to the DualSense's sort of rounded, bubbly button. Hold on, I've got another DualSense right here. You know what? The difference really isn't even that big of a difference.
But this sounds like it's worth $200, or at least it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm of the belief, it's expensive. I'm not gonna lie, it's expensive. But I'm of the belief if you use something regularly, it's worth the asking price to go a little bougie with it. I've always believed that it's totally worth getting a bigger TV. It's totally worth getting a bigger bed. It's worth getting a DualSense Edge because you're going to be using it every time you want to play a video game. And it's just kind of nice to have that freedom, especially when you play a game that has controller settings that you kind of like, you kind of wish were a little different, you kind of wish, you didn't have to press this button or that button to do this function. And maybe the game doesn't supplement you with those, accessibility options of changing those things around. Obviously, if you're playing a turn-based RPG like Octopath Traveler 2, you really only need the stick and the X button for that. So, not a whole lot of use for this. But games like Power Wash Simulator, which I have been playing, games like Apex Legends, which I've been playing, super useful for this. I remember earlier this year when I was doing my replay of Final Fantasy VII Remake, I was really wanting a different control scheme. But I couldn't figure out in the settings a control scheme that I would have liked. And this kind of solves that problem for me. So that's definitely appreciated in that sense. So yeah, it's sort of a case-by-case basis. It's not for everybody. If you tend to just kind of play first-party Sony games as your main thing, probably not worth it because those control schemes kind of work on their own and work for what they are. But if you're like a heavy first-person shooter guy, you're a heavy competitive multiplayer guy, the back buttons are a must. They are absolutely a necessity for playing on gamepad as opposed to keyboard and mouse. And then I think, if you're just someone like me who plays a wide range of video games and kind of just, bounces around from genre to genre, this is a nice thing to have. Definitely worth the asking price, I would say. And yeah, I'm very happy with this controller. I'll also say it comes with a sort of a wired control cable. Let me get it right here because it's plugged into my other DualSense right now. It's plugged into it's a little bit of a thicker cable, not, still fairly bendy and so forth, and then a nice thick end on it. The carrying case also comes with, I haven't really used it yet, so here, hold on, let me look at this. This is a sort of how can I explain this? This is just a little like end piece for your controller wire that you can kind of fit your wire into, lock it in, and then it has a lock and unlock feature that you can use. So when you plug it into the DualSense Edge, as far as I know, this only works in the DualSense Edge. You can sort of lock it in, and then the wire can't come loose. Huh. So that's just kind of a neat thing that they included in there. They definitely give you, I think, plenty of little gadgets and doodads to make the asking price of it worth it. In comparison to the Xbox Series or the Xbox Elite 2 controller, which has, a bunch of customizable things as well, but obviously I don't play on Xbox, so it's not worth it. Also worth noting, something that I thought was kind of cute, the back of the carrying case can be punched out, so you can charge your controller while it's in the case.
They thought of everything, really, didn't they?
It's a really neat, really well designed. There's a little carrying clip that you can attach your case to your belt or to your backpack or whatever. I think the build quality of this controller is excellent, and though I won't be like utilizing all of its functions with every single video game I'll play, when it comes around time to play a game that I wish played more like a different game, bada boom, in terms of control scheme, this solves that problem right here for me. So yeah, if you're thinking about it, if you're in the market for maybe something like this, totally worth it. Absolutely, fully recommend it. If you're looking for just a little more of a prestige gameplay experience with your PlayStation 5, this is badass right here. It would be nice to have sort of things like, I know the SCUF controllers do a really good PlayStation line, but of course there's not as much built-in sort of compatibility with the SCUF controllers as opposed to this, where like they have their own pre-built menus in the PS5 UI for this. So, sort of like judge your differences there. I think the SCUF controllers are also pretty expensive as well, so it just kind of depends, but you can have a little more customization in the look of the controller with SCUF controllers, like colors and so forth. Whereas this, it's just the plain white and black, which is different, Connor, if you'll show your controller, which I believe the DualSense controller is just all white, yeah? Okay, a little bit of black on the bottom, but this one they made the touchpad black and they made the buttons black.
Which I don't even like white tech all that much, so that looks nice.
Yeah, I'm not huge on white. You were so gracious enough to gift me the I think they call it the Cosmic Red plates for my PS5. I bought this Cosmic Red controller that I'm showing, but you bought me the plates, and I've been using those ever since because I like that look a lot more. I'm personally, I don't care for white, but I'm sick of black. I hate that every entertainment system is black. So it was kind of like a benefit for me when the PS5 was announced and shown off. I was like, oh, it's white. Oh, and it looks cool. So, we had a conversation in our group chat about that. So yeah, I think it looks sleek. I think it looks cool. I think it feels great in the hands. I'm not a huge fan of how the buttons feel to press, but just some more adjustment time, and I'm certain that I'll get used to it and it won't be that big of a deal. Buttons just as big as the regular DualSense. They just feel flatter. So it feels a little more game controller where, the like PS5 in general is just trying to be a little more bougie of an experience. I feel like the face buttons are the only step back. Everything else about this controller is a step forward. From the texture, from the feel in your palm, from even the click of the touchpad feels better. The pull of the triggers feels better, especially now that I get to adjust the pull length in certain things. So like when I go to play Apex, you best believe long pull on the aim, short pull on the shooting trigger, and it's in good reach that you can switch and do that whenever you want, and there's good clicks to let you know where you are. To where you don't even need to look at the controller to know what you need to do. Big fan of this controller, fully recommended. If you're looking for something like that. If not, I don't blame you. It's expensive.
I would be down to get it. It's just a matter of that.
Yeah.
Maybe when I'm comfortable enough to get that. Because it does look nice. All the features are very nice.
It's nice. So, yeah. A full recommendation. I'm of the belief that, it's worth the asking price if you use it every day. I play my PlayStation, not every day, but most days. And, I'm going to be using that controller every day. What I'll be playing varies every day, just to how I feel in the current mood. So, a full-fledged recommendation for me. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for your Two Penny Gamescast, episode 137. Thank you so much for watching and listening over here at youtube.com/@2pennygames and mainstream podcast services of your choice. Remember, you can catch live reactions to The Last of Us HBO episode 8, right? Yeah, yes. Episode 8 went live last night if you're watching on youtube.com/2pennygames as this goes live. So make sure to go check all of that out. It's on the channel right now. And Phil told us today that we are wrapping up the hype Have You Ever Played Kingdom Hearts 2 series. If not this week, then definitely next week. So make sure to check all of that in. I remember it's been a while since we recorded that. Why are you all up on this camera, my man?
I'm just looking around at things, Tavin.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you go right ahead. I remember the ending of Kingdom Hearts 2 being extremely, extremely hype, no pun intended, and exciting. So I'm very, very excited to look back at that and see my reaction to a lot of those different things and so forth. So check all that out on Tuesday. Tik Tok reviews of Resident Evil have been going up on the channel and over on TikTok, on our TikTok page and on the YouTube Shorts. So check that out. Phil's review is up. Connor's review is up. Very good reviews from both of you gentlemen on that review of Resident Evil. In fact, I haven't gone back and looked at my footage yet, but just remembering how I felt, how I didn't get all of my points across at the end of that video, you guys might have outdone yourselves or outdone me on that one, which is a rare sight because I'm pretty fucking elite. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you are elite. You have the elite controller. You have the elite miss. Only the elitist for Tam.
Yeah. Anyway, so check all of that out. My personal TikTok short review of that will be up soon. Check back next week, Connor, for Halo.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Yeah, short game. Really not that long.
I'm getting help with a friend shortly, and I've played halfway through the game already by myself.
Okay, yeah. It literally it'll take you 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
So check back next week for our retro review of Halo Combat Evolved. Until next time, have a great time, and Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye. Have a nice day.